Welcome everyone to the November 17, 2025 Open Wallet Foundation Wallet Interoperability SIG meeting. As with all Linux Foundation meetings, this is held under the Linux Foundation antitrust policy. If you have any questions about these matters, please contact your company counsel, or if you're a member of the Linux Foundation, feel free to contact Andrew Updegrove of the firm Gesmer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the Linux Foundation. This is also held under the Linux Foundation Code of Conduct, which can best be summed up as be excellent to each other, be kind to each other, be respectful to each other, and we are going to get a ton of work done. I would really like to thank everybody for joining us today, and especially thank Alex and Dmitri from the DCC Learner Credential Wallet Project. This is both a lab in the Open Wallet Foundation, but also it's a fantastic effort coming out of MIT, and we're really excited they're able to share the work that they're doing, what's going into the project, and where they're going next. This meeting is being recorded, and I don't know why it says May, but it will be posted to the OWF YouTube unless the video goes completely haywire, which it doesn't seem to be doing right now. Is there anyone new to the call who'd like to introduce themselves? Alrighty. Our agenda, I'm going to fly through this today so we can spend as much time with our two speakers as possible. We need a co-chair for this SIG. The great and powerful Shar has moved on from the Open Wallet Foundation. She has been a constant and awesome member of our community for a very long time. She has taken a new role with a new company, and that's not in the identity space, and she's had to leave. We're currently actively looking for a new co-chair of the SIG. Most of that job, 98.74% of it, is finding great speakers both inside the Open Wallet Foundation and, more importantly, outside the Open Wallet Foundation, so we can all learn from each other. So that if you're interested, let me know. You can reach me on Discord. Everybody knows where I'm on Discord. Upcoming SIG meetings next Monday, 11/24. The WeBuild team, part of the large scale pilots in the EUDI wallet program, are going to join us to talk about organizational wallets. As Bo mentioned before we started recording, there's evidently news coming out this week, I believe on Wednesday, Bo, from the EUDI program about business wallets. Is that correct?
Yes, there is an announcement coming out, has been promised for that particular day, and it's been very much expected that EU would move into the global direction when it comes to JSON, LD, and so forth. And we may be slightly disappointed as this is the message I keep getting.
We'll have to wait and see what happens on the 19th. Architecture SIG, that meeting is happening directly after this call. For those who are on during, hey, Caleb, welcome. Thanks for joining us. For those who joined the call before we started recording, we had a really great conversation with the SDJOT team, specifically Lucas. We're talking about this wallet mapping effort. And this is really something that's been spearheaded by David and Carol and Romek. But the idea is, how do we map the projects that we have? This is not scoring them, but this is understanding them. How do we find the things that these projects do intrinsically well? Where are the gaps? What's missing? What are the projects not doing? Where are the projects not fitting? Most importantly, for me as staff, what are the common components across all of our projects? And how do we work together better? And this has been, I know it's been, for everyone participating in the architecture SIG, it's been slower than we wanted to go, but I think with Lucas's conversation today, we're pretty excited about that. And I'm going to be working with him on getting that, at least the first the first draft of that map together so we can start moving forward. Coming up, that's the architecture SIG is happening right after this call. The Occupy maintainers call is tomorrow, 11/18. We have a link to Zoom there. I will put a link to this Wiki page in chat right now. Sorry, everyone, for the dead air. That is the Occupy call is tomorrow, 11/18. The Credo team call is Wednesday, the 19th. We have the Bifold team call on 11/20. And then the OWL, the open wallet, well, basically the test harness community meeting is happening on 11/20 as well. Those links to Zoom all work, and we'll get you there. And with that, Bo just put in chat, one theme which is getting important is how wallets will be control panels for agents. Great comment, Bo. Thank you for that. Hugely important topic for Dmitri. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to stop talking because none of you came here to hear me. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex and Dmitri. These are two fantastic members of the Open Wallet Foundation community. They're part of the Learner Credential Wallet Lab. I got to finally meet them in person. I've met Dmitri before, but I got to finally meet Alex in person at the GDC in July, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sean.
Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. So I'm Alex Aguera. I'm joined by with Dmitri Zagadulin. We're both at the DCC. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me one moment. Okay,
We can see your screen. It looks good.
wonderful. Okay, so we're at the DCC, and what we do is we advance the use and understanding of VCs in higher education. I can kind of go in a little bit about our work at MIT. So the DCC it stands for Digital Credentials Consortium. We're an international network of post-secondary institutions. We're housed at MIT Learning. And what we do is we revolutionize digital academic credentials. We do this by enhancing interop, accessibility, privacy, integrity. We do this by using open standards, i.e. also our collaboration with OWF. We develop open source MIT licensed software, and it's not just the wallet. You'll see in a little bit all the other stuff we do and we work on. And what we do is we provide research, leadership, and support. And we do this through our consortium of 15 plus institutions around the world. We're currently on 4 different continents. We help institutions integrate our open source software onto their own university-wide platforms. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with the trust model, issuer, holder, verifier. What we do is we've created software for each one of these. And as you can see at the top, we have the LCW. And the way it works is we'll have credentials that are issued to students through the admin dashboard. They get accepted and held into the Learner Credential wallet. I'll go into some features of that wallet in a little bit. We also have open source verifier software called Verifier Plus. And all of this gets done by going into the issue registry that we also host and making sure that the credentials are validated. I'll go into a little bit of that in a little bit as well. If you're curious, we do have QR codes here for all of our different projects. You'll either see some repositories or links to our website where you can learn more about how to integrate this software in case you're curious. Our team. So we're a pretty small distributed team, mostly based in Boston, but Carrie Lemoy, our director, she's in North Carolina. Gillian Walsh and myself and Dmitri were Boston-based. Gillian Walsh helps us with operations and project management. I'm a senior engineer. I work mostly with the holder verifier side of things. James Chartrand, who's based out of Canada, he's another senior engineer who works mostly with verifier issuer software. And Dmitri Zagadulin is our lead architect and our standards expert. Okay, so I'll move on to the wallet. So some of you might have seen our project on the OWF's Open Wallet Foundation's organization site on GitHub. And we actually just transferred stewardship not too long ago. And so far, collaboration's been great. What I'll do is I'll just go into some of the features of the LCW. So like I mentioned, the LCW is a wallet for higher education. And as such, we do use VCs, which help with interop, obviously. One thing that I'd note, I guess, about the LCW is that when you're in higher education, something that gets used a lot for certifications, et cetera, are open badges. So a lot of times you'll see open badges, which are based on VCs, imported into our wallets. And what they do is, I guess they provide a nicer visual, with badge images and such that can be shared and stored in our wallets. So one second. So here on our screen, for the purposes of this presentation, I'm using mostly test credentials, just to give you an idea of the types of information that we display. But here you'll see our dashboard with a couple of different credentials. You can always drill down to see more information about any of them. So you'll see information all the way on the right, you'll see we've got a mock Bachelor of Science, and in that credential preview, we display issuance dates. There's also the name of the issuer, a link to it, description, criteria by which a student can receive that credential. So it's just a nice way of not just displaying, but also storing the credentials as they're kept locally. If you drill down to the issuer registry, issuer details button, we do have some information on the issuer registry that also gets used on the dashboard or the credential preview screen to kind of let users know if the issuer is verified. And I'll go, and Dmitri will talk more about this in a little bit. Another feature that we've come out with recently on the LCW are alignments. There's been some questions about how to kind of tie in our higher education credentials into what naturally happens after you take a course or you graduate from a university, which is finding a job and being able to tie them into the workforce. And so alignments are a part of the Open Badge standard that let credentials show what requirements or what skills are being achieved through the attaining of this credential. So as you can see, it's just a bit of JSON within the VC, and we're displaying it as such, newish feature. And then on the topic of interop, so we've got the sharing of credentials, and we do this on the app in different ways. We can create a public link. So what that'll do is that'll generate a QR code that can get scanned. Very nifty. We can also export to PDF. So with that, we're using the render method spec for exporting. We can add to LinkedIn as well. Sending a credential will actually just download a text file with the entire VC onto your device, and that text file can be shared and imported elsewhere. So like I mentioned earlier, we do have a new UI for displaying credential verification and validation. So you can see here, there are different things that we check for in order to display that credential or accept it, as being, in a supported credential format or having a valid signature. So we perform those checks, and then, based on what we see, we display them here, all in an effort to guide the user in understanding what goes into an accepted, validated, verified credential. It's really just meant to be a tool. So I'll move on from the wallet to talk a little bit more about.
Wait, before we actually jump into this topic,
Sure.
I want to pause. If you go back to a couple of slides, I want to pause and make sure. Yeah, like here's great. Since it'll be switching topics a little bit, and we want to talk about the broader challenges of interoperability, I want to make sure if people have a chance to ask questions about our wallet specifically. So open source, written in React Native, so TypeScript and JavaScript. We're largely grant funded, which means whichever grants we get, those are the protocols we support. So we started with W3C, VC API, and vColumn protocols. We hope to add OpenID for VCI and VP in the future, did come in the future, again, largely funding determined. But I want to pause here and see if there's any questions about the wallet specifically.
Sean, you raised your hand.
Yeah. So there's a large conversation inside the Open Wallet Foundation right now around implementing adopters.md files in our repos. The Occupy community is going to start, and the reason for that is, well, from staff's perspective, twofold. Number one, I want these projects to get credit for all this amazing work that they're doing. So an adopters.md just literally lists out, and it's pretty much self-reported, this is being implemented here for this use case in production or in development or as a pilot or a POC. But it gives a project an ability to have a public list of folks who are implementing this software.
What a fantastic idea.
Well-
That is something that we're sort of already, it's in progress, meaning like we are keeping track of what institutions in our consortium
Very
are
cool.
beginning to implement our software. And we know that at least on our repository, we plan on showcasing what projects are being used. And like I mentioned, this is all open source, so any
Yep.
university, any institution can take it and then customize it. So what we're trying to collect right now are examples of wallets that institutions have made so that we can just post screenshots or links to them. But I would imagine it would be easier to transfer over all of that to an adopters.md file once all that's set.
Well, you just answered my question because I was going to ask where else is this in production.
Yeah, great question.
I love open source, but I have a former boss who called it permissionless innovation. No one needs to ask permission to use it. And I routinely walk into rooms and find out, hey, did you know so-and-so is using Bifold or Occupy or LCW? And from my perspective, like the fact that y'all are capturing that data is fantastic, and I can't wait to hear more. David Alexander, you got your hand raised. You're up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. Can an individual, in terms of the way your architecture will work, and I accept the grant funding point you made about that, would an individual be able to have multiple copies of a verified credential in different verified credential formats stored in the wallet? So
What a fantastic question.
so they can use it in different ecosystems. So that was the first question. My third question, which I think is interesting, you are moving this into an open source environment. Is LCW already consuming other open source components, either from the Open Wallet Foundation or anywhere else, because you're now moving it into the Open Wallet Foundation? I just really wanted to try and understand, is it dependent on anything within the Open Wallet Foundation or any other open source today?
Yeah, great. Okay, great questions. I'm going to try to remember them. Let's let me try and answer in reverse order. So yeah, so we've been, I think, part of the Open Wallet Foundation, I don't know, about a year now, right? Possibly a little bit more. I don't think we depend on any of the major SDKs in the Open Wallet Foundation. We do, of course, use a whole bunch of open source libraries, anything from the VC serialization and canonicalization libraries to the signature libraries to various DID resolvers. Yes, absolutely. This is built on top of a big pyramid of open source dependencies.
Second question, I think he was alluding to the use of profiles, but I could be wrong.
No. So this is a great question. Not quite profiles. So I love this topic in general. We a number of weeks ago had a large design discussion with the team having to do with the multiple copies of the credential. So we look at it on a number of levels. First of all, I think it brings up a really interesting topic for all wallet implementers, which is how do you handle duplicates? Even within the same format, if I have a credential and then I try to add a second credential that is identical, just byte for byte identical, what do you do? And it's interesting to talk to various wallet implementers to see what the different policies are. Our policy ended up being we flagged to the user that, hey, this is a duplicate, but we still let them add the credential. But that's a byte for byte duplicate. What about the credential is identical to an existing credential, but its issuance date's is slightly newer, right? Do you prompt to overwrite? Do you flag the fact that it's very similar to a previous credential? But that's not quite what you asked. Although I do think it is an interesting topic. Yes, as soon as we support any other serialization, we'll have this notion that we have the credential as DJOT, we have the credential as a W3C VC data model with JSON-LD signature, and then with a non-JSON-LD based signature, right? So you're absolutely right. We haven't laid out what the UI would look like, and I would love to see examples of it from other wallet implementers. How they show on the list view that you have one credential, but here's the 3 or 4 different formats or serializations for it. So I'm glad you asked that question. If any of you here on the call are implementers and have UI examples, we would love to see. Otherwise, we'll we'll do our best to implement that.
I will quickly respond to that because we've been doing a fair bit of thinking about that. In many respects, which particular credential format an ecosystem requires is almost an agent level piece of interaction, whereas from an individual's perspective, they want to know what proof or verified credentials they have. They are possibly less concerned about its technical construction, just that they have one. And where you have orchestration running between the wallet and the relying party or whatever the verifier, it can be part of the specification of a transaction that it can accept verified credentials in the following formats. So I think it's an agent level challenge.
It is. You're up.
It's a really important one. I could go on about the how do you manage version control, but I'll leave that for another time. My final question was, where you've got export PDF, are you wrapping that PDF in any form of digital signature or encryption so it is tamper proof in terms of a third party being able to check that it's not been modified?
Fantastic question. And I also love the topic of version control. I think we need to have more conversations on that as in the wallet and credentials community. I think there's some affordances that we need on the data model level to handle version control that we haven't done yet. So absolutely. But back to your question. So yes and no. At the moment, we don't sign or cryptographically bind the resulting PDF. However, and so for example, we don't use at the moment the Adobe C2PA affordances to be able to embed the signature or the hash of the PDF into the PDF metadata itself. What we do tend to do is we add to the rendered PDF a QR code and a link, so and clickable hyperlinks to the original credential itself, which is signed, so that it can be verified by independent software, right? So for the export to PDF, we use the HTML template part of the render method, and for those of you not familiar, the render method is a property of W3C verifiable credential data model. It's a reserved extension point in both 1.1 and 2.0. And just recently, like literally weeks ago, it was adopted by the Verifiable Credentials 2.0 working group for incubation and publishing, meaning the working group is going to, in its new charter, standardize both the extension mechanism and a couple of the sort of template methods. So it's just a way for verifiable credential to either embed or link to when you're going to be rendering this as PDF, as SVG, as audio or Braille or cross modalities. This is the code that you would use to render it, which we think we all as implementers agree that we need more of that standardization. But back to your question, we don't sign the PDF. We include QR codes and live links to the original signed credential in the PDF itself. We do recognize that there are being developed affordances to include the signature in the PDF itself, such as the C2PA format. We just haven't gotten around to it.
Okay, thank you.
Sean also had a question on where our work is currently being used. I know, Dmitri, you've worked with Arizona. McMaster has kind of worked with our stuff. Do you want to touch a little bit about where it's been implemented?
Sure. Yeah. So essentially, we've got universities that are using the stock app that's published in the App Store, including McMaster's universities. I believe Georgia Tech. We'll get the list and put it on the adopters.md. I don't have it off the top of my head. And then the other audience is, of course, folks that forked and rebranded it. So Arizona State University has 2 rebranded forks of the credential. One's called My Skills Pocket, and the second one's called, I think, ASU Pocket or something like that. And they have slightly different features and different visual branding, but it's the same source code. And at the moment, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is also doing a rebranded fork of it as well. So they're planning to take it more in the direction of not just higher education, but also employment and HR, and they're hoping to take it to an ambitious skills savings account project. So those are the main ones off the top of my head. I know Northeastern University did a pilot with it as well. But yeah, I'm sure there's other ones that I'm forgetting.
Yeah,
Great.
we're working on that list. All right. So I think
Any other questions before we get into interoperability?
No, please go for it.
All right.
I can speak to this slide and then pass it over to Dmitri. So the topic here for the LCW is, what does it mean for wallets VCs to be interoperable? Obviously we want to get a VC into the wallet. We want to display the VC, and that's what the LCW does. Optionally, we want to verify and validate, which we saw on one of the screenshots for the UI that we've built out recently. We want to get VCs out of a wallet, so the sharing of a credential, which we were just on earlier. And then there are advanced operations that include syncing between multiple wallets and exporting backup and restore. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dmitri. Dmitri, I'll stop sharing. Would you like to share your screen?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. And so as we dive into this, I just want to frame and preface why we're talking about this. Obviously, this is the wallet interoperability working group. This is what y'all do day in and day out. So we're here more to share some of the challenges and some of the things that we've seen with regards to interoperability, especially in the context of hold on, let me just Windows, application Windows. Here we go. Yeah. Especially, can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can see your screen. What does it mean
Excellent.
for
Okay.
wallets VCs to be interoperable?
Perfect. Yeah. So in general, we've again limited by funding. We very much intend Learn Credential Wallet to be sort of a good example and to participate in interoperability with other wallets as much as possible. Over the last couple of years, there was a series of interoperability tests put together by the Jobs for the Future Foundation. And I know several of you on this call were participants in that. So I figured it might be interesting to this group to sort of to talk about what some of the learnings from that and from our general wallet implementation, right? So this gets into stuff that you probably already know. What are the different dimensions of wallets being interoperable? But maybe we can add some interesting components that that might be helpful to you. Okay, so all right, wallets are interoperable if we've got VCs. We can get them into different wallets. If those wallets can display the credentials, optionally verify and validate, because wallets are not generally standalone verifiers in and of themselves, but they do offer a courtesy feature for the user, so that they're not embarrassed when they hand over the credential, but it's actually not verified and so on. And then this is the real important part that I think we should all be focusing on, is how to get credentials out of the wallet in an interoperable way, including a standardized wallet export format. And shout out to Stephen Curran here on the call. Not Curran, goddammit. Sam Curran here on the call for doing a lot of explorations into this topic and shaping the direction that we went in. Okay, so I think we're all here familiar in the various interoperability of getting VCs into the wallet. What we're seeing in the wallet community is essentially 3 or 4 different camps of APIs that wallets variously support. We have the W3C browser API, the digital credential API, which I think was presenting earlier to this group, and that's a way for websites to ask credentials of mobile wallets. So hopefully they'll extend that to web wallets and desktop wallets as well. We have this credential handler API, or CHAPI, which was kind of a spiritual precursor to digital credential API, but it goes for a slightly different set of functionality. It provides kind of a dumb pipe to carry other protocols' requests. So it mostly provides a wallet selector protocol, as contrasted with the DC API's credential selector UI. So we've got the CCG protocols. We've got, of course, DIDCOM. We have the OpenID Foundation OID for VCI and VP. We have sort of a fractal ecosystem of other wallets and sort of proprietary platforms that can ingest verifiable credentials, less in a standardized protocol and more with one-to-one integrations with other providers. And then, of course, various wallets have the very quote-unquote manual options of, okay, if you're not a normal user, if you're a developer or a power user, here's how you can here's how you can add a credential by pasting the JSON into a text box, pasting the link to it, uploading it from a file. I think you're all familiar with that. I think we've all bumped across the differences in the credentials need to be interoperable both on the envelope level. So we've got the VCDM, we've got SDJOT, we've got a couple of other envelope formats developing an ecosystem. And then, of course, separate, but also very important, is the interoperability on the payload level, which even as we standardize on the envelope part, there's an infinity amount of work to do to be interoperable on essentially on the industry verticals, on the specific ones. The first JFF Interoperability Fest had to do with displaying the credentials. And it might surprise you, or maybe not, just how difficult just the displaying part was. Without the protocols, without even the signature interoperability or API interoperability, just here's a credential, get it somehow into the wallet and display it, was an incredible amount of kicking and screaming from vendors, friction. It was kind of awesome to realize just how big of a challenge interoperability is, even in something simple as displaying. So And of course, we've got a whole spectrum of interoperability as far as display. There is, you can just display a card and say you have something here, but we can't parse it. You can display some of the standard fields from it, like the credential name and issuer. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you can go into full-on issuer specified rendering method. Like, here's the template, here's how we want this to look across devices, here's how we want this to look across internationalization and localization, and across modalities like visual, audio, tactile, haptic, and all that stuff. So would love to talk about display interoperability challenges after I run through the slides. One thing that I want to highlight that's coming that I think not a lot of groups have wrestled with. I think we're all sort of arriving in a place where we can display something for a verifiable credential, even if it's just like a card and a name. But one of the upcoming areas of challenge is we have these, in some use cases, in some verticals, we have these large compound credentials. What do I mean by compound? I mean signed VCs embedded in other signed VCs, right? So just like we have verifiable presentations that are packages of credentials, we have these individual credentials signed and sealed and everything that contain in themselves other credentials, right? So we've got at least one, if not more, level of recursion, essentially. One example of this is in the education space called CLR v2, Comprehensive Learner Records. It's essentially a way of stuffing your entire learner record, your entire transcript, educational history into a single VC. Now, you're probably wondering, why would anybody do that in the first place? Why would you do that? And that's something I'm wondering myself. It's something that I've generally tried to argue against and say, hey, why don't you just have a collection of standalone verifiable presentation or verifiable credentials? At best, package it as a VP, but like, why have these recursive VCs? And the answer, as always, is legacy and business model politics. Especially in the education space, there is a number of what's called publishers that want to either think of themselves or genuinely do provide value in packaging and verifying credentials that other people have issued. So anyways, we've got these compound recursive VCs in CLR v2. In the employment in the HR land, we have a similar sort of monster called LERRS, which is Learner and Employment Record Resume Standard. And it's a way, so downside, it's a giant recursive VC. Upside, though, is, and I've had the chance to be on some implementing teams of software that produced these essentially verifiable credential resumes. What's interesting about it is it gets into this whole other conversation of composing credentials into a story, right? There's going to be a class of applications, whether it's a portfolio app, resume app, a transcript application, and anything similar. This notion of users going to come over with their wallet, with their loose collection of individual credentials, and our app is going to help put it together into a story, and then seal that story either in a presentation or a verifiable credential in and of itself. Similarly, even if you don't go as deep into your full employment or your full educational history, just a single skill credential, a single self-issued skill credential that I, Dmitri, know how to write basic HTML. We think there's a large value in self-issued credentials, provided that, of course, you back them up with evidence. That you say, okay, here's a verifiable credential that I issued myself, claiming stuff about myself. But also, here's a link to a YouTube video of me writing that HTML. And here's a link for another recommendation for an endorsement from my colleague or from my manager saying, yes, I endorse the fact that Dmitri knows how to write basic HTML, and it's a verifiable credential in and of itself. Why do I bring it up here, aside from the fact that it's a cool technology? Because essentially, that bundle of the original self-issued credential plus supporting documents plus recommendations that are hash linked to this credential is essentially a compound credential. And so our wallets need the logic, need the intelligence to say, not only is this a skilled credential, but here's the supporting evidence of it, right? Like grouping it into either the detail view or even the list view. So interesting advanced topic for us all to discuss. Briefly touching on a lot of the wallets, though not all, do want to provide verification and validation as a courtesy feature to the user. Again, I don't think it's core to the wallet. Maybe it is, but it's certainly helpful for users. So we've got the verification and validation of presentations like credentials. Different implementers handle these error conditions differently, but in general, we verify the signature on the presentation, the expected parameters such as challenge and domain. If it's unsigned, we cycle through the verified credentials in a presentation and make sure those are all verified as well. And then for an individual VC, we have the generic verification that's handled by libraries automatically. That's the easy stuff, right? Does it have a JSON schema and does it pass it? Are the dates okay? And is the signature okay? That's the trivial stuff. That is handled automatically. The heavy lifting for us as wallet implementers is in this app specific and the business logic validation. For example, I think a lot of the wallet implementers in the Open Wallet Foundation handle the issue of recognized whether a DID issuer is recognized or not in a different way. Some of them support issuer registries, and again, there is half a dozen of different specs of how to express this wallet supports different issuer registries. There's also different behavior in if it's an unrecognized DID, is it an error? Do you flag the whole credential as red? Do you just give it a yellow warning? Do you do nothing? Right? It's an interesting sort of strategic UI UX choice. Revocation, it is business logic. Here's why I put that into business logic and not in automatic verification validation. Because as we know from things like driver's licenses and other credentials, different use cases care about revocation and others don't. For example, some, just to put a very simple example, some bars, if you walk in and they ask you to prove your age with your driver's license, some bars will accept an expired driver's license and other bars won't for counterfeit reasons, for very good reasons. But my point is, it's not just a mechanical operation, it's use case specific. And so we as wallet implementers need, again, to decide, do we throw up a big red X if it's expired? Do we just throw a warning or what? Then there's the less standardized issues of holder binding and confidence method, although I know the European Union and the EU wallet initiatives are putting down strong legislation and opinions on how to do holder bindings and confidence methods. But that is another thing that just got adopted by the Verifiable Credential Working Group at W3C. So render method and confidence method both got adopted by the working group. So hopefully we'll have rec level specs out of it. Something that's underexplored that I do think is also important is the terms of use, both on the VC level and on the VP level. What do I mean by that? On the VC level, the terms of use are set by the issuer that hey, here's a credential, but here's my strong preferences of how it's to be used. And we could have a long discussion of whether that makes sense at all, whether it gets into DRM land. And then even more importantly, on the presentation level, we want the ability for the users to say, oh, this business is requesting a credential. Okay, I'm sharing the credential, but in my wallet UI, in the share interface, I'm checking the checkboxes for terms of use to say that business, I'm allowing the business to use it for their uses, but not to resell the credential, right? So I just want to remind everybody that terms of use is a reserved property in reserved extension point in the verifiable credential data model. And we've got lots of interesting uses for it down the line, all of which, of course, have implications on wallet interoperability. And then we have this gray area of not VC revocation, but DID method specific DID and key revocation. And I think there needs to be a lot needs to be done there to be able to standardize it, because I don't think it's very well standardized at all. And okay, keeping an eye on the time. All right, yeah, I want to make sure there's room for. There is, of course, as I mentioned, interoperability on the issuer registry and which specs you support. There's the gray area of, hey, different DIDs handle DID revocation differently. So I haven't seen a lot of support for that in various wallets. So that's a summary of the stuff that I was talking about. This is the area that I care the most about. If we don't have interoperable ways of getting VCs out of the wallet, what are we even doing, right? Why did we start this whole verifiable credential thing in the first place? So I want to encourage all of the implementers. Yes, I see David has. Let me just finish the sentence and we'll take the question of, we want to make sure our wallets support standard APIs of getting stuff out, of sharing the credentials with software and applications that speak credential APIs. And then, of course, we need lots of affordances for the bootstrap part, for what to do when software and people will have no idea what VCs are and don't support the APIs. For that, we still need things like render to PDF, create a public link on an external verifier, and so on, right? And then, of course, we've got the advanced operations of, hey, could we share the same database of credentials between different vendors' wallets in a secure and privacy-preserving way? And can we export and import credentials and or even keys? And yes, we get into the problem of non-exportable keys and when it's a good idea and so on. Okay, David, hand up.
I think you're absolutely on the right track around wallet attached cloud storage, syncing up to multiple wallets, but there's also a front channel integration, which we're seeing emerge in certain use cases where an issuer will publish into their wallet, but they will also allow on-device or wallet-to-wallet interaction to inspect a verified credential and generate and mint their own credential derived from the inspection of that other credential,
Oh, interesting.
where the issuer will not allow it to become portable outside of their wallet. So but it's being run under a certification regime. Only certified providers can do the trust transfer or rewrapping. And to go back to your point about learner records and employee records and, right to employment type records, that is no different than the real world physical processes that people run, where they are giving a risk-based score against the attributes that they either verify or inspect manually or via other channels. So I think composite, we call them, but compound verified credentials will be the enabler of end-to-end seamless service interactions, service integrations. It will help with onboarding somebody into new employment, carrying their continuing professional development records forward, giving them the independence of it, particularly if they've got wallet attached storage, cloud storage. We call it a personal data store. Other people call it, it doesn't really matter. But the principle that the individual carries an independent record of everything, and they can then hook into any ecosystem or any wallet or any service or any app. And I think it's that ability to transfer context, transfer trust into a new use case that's outside the remit of the original issuer's intentions.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And it does mean that we as wallet implementers have a lot of work to do in displaying and processing these compound credentials in an interoperable way. And also, I'm very intrigued by what you said about use cases where issuers share credentials with other wallets, who mint inspection proofs and so on. I would love to learn more about that. That's very interesting. I don't know much about that use case. All right, yeah, and of course, there's other advanced operations, including what we said earlier in chat about, because wallets manage keys for users, they're perfectly positioned to become hubs or control panels or control planes for agentic interaction. And yeah, we've got lots to talk about version control and about publish subscribe for interested external parties. I think that's a interesting conversation in this field. Okay, so just to summarize, what I think we're all living day to day in, interop is hard. There's lots of different dimensions of wallet interop, getting the VCs into the wallet, what we do with the VCs once they're there, verifying and validating them for the user, getting them out, and of course, transferring wallet contents, backing up wallets, backing up keys, and all that stuff. All right, so we got a little bit of time for questions. Anybody else?
Jorge, you're up.
Hey, Dmitri, this is great. Thank you for sharing. Question on could you clarify the presentation protocol that you're using?
Yes, so we're using, yeah, great question. So at the moment, we're using vCalm, so the VC API verifiable presentation requests. So I can I'll throw a link to the spec. We do hope to add support for the OpenID for VP as well for the presentation protocol, and then DIDCOM as time and funding permits and so on. In general, okay, in both sharing and ingesting Credential, we're fundamentally limited by the affordances Google and Apple give us as mobile apps, right? There's only a couple of very narrow pipes into an app. There is deep links, there is scanning a QR code, which is still deep links, there is sharing intent, and then there's the manual stuff like pasting into a text box. So I think all of us are trying to sort of standardize these very narrow affordances that we're given. All right, somebody else had...
Bo had his hand raised a second ago. Bo, did you have a question?
Okay, as a kind of a chief simplifier, I've tried to be in the European work, the DC for EU, which was very much about the academic credentials. The approach, obviously, here in Finland and in Europe has been that it is the life event of trying to get a job that should be served. And there will be some organizations that will help you to tell you that when you go for a particular work, that what kind of credentials do you need? And then it is a human right to get those credentials. Some come from universities, the others come from school and from your previous employer and whatnot. And then it's of course a part of the mirror to that human right is that all issuers must have interoperable organization wallets. There are 26 listed. Just pick and choose, and we did it for pension credentials already here last year, which is a little bit different.
Oh, interesting.
They are needed for when you need to get a discount, and can be used for all sorts of discounts, of course. And then naturally, the other side is the employer, the coming employer, the verifier, and they should also choose an organization wallet up front. And that is the EU business wallet that should come out the day after tomorrow. Some specification for what it should live up to, so that it will serve this live events of all sorts. Naturally, it's easy to say that large language models will probably be the best to tell you where you should find the credentials you need for a specific job, and from there you just go and get them with your wallet from the issuer and send it to the verifier. This is the simple version, but you are so much deeper into it that I'm not competent to comment more than that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to be following that with great interest, the business wallet development and so on. Sean?
I'm gonna do this real quick. What do you need, you or Alex, both of you? What does the DCC Learner Credential Wallet team need, and how can the greater OWF community help?
I would, yeah, I mean, one, obviously participation from the community, input, opinions. If they see anything on the wallet site, on the repo that they'd like to improve, or questions, just to kind of get the community involved in the process. Feedback, all of these things are appreciated. And I think using OWF as a platform for visibility for our project has been incredibly helpful, and we'd like to continue to invite the community to just come and give us their thoughts. Dmitri, you were saying?
Yeah, everything that Alex said. In addition, I would love for OWF to, for example, take a Hello World credential and then chart which of the wallets, which of the projects can display it, which of them can ingest it, and in what protocols. Partly having to do with the mapping initiative that you mentioned earlier, but specifically focusing on here's a credential, what can we do with it with each wallet? And I would love to see a particular emphasis on getting credentials out of various wallets for consumption of other wallets.
Cool. There's a bigger conversation that started in the architecture working group, the architecture SIG, around how do we get more developed. We have a developer pipeline challenge that every open source project has. How do we get people interested in these projects and working on them and contributing? We also have what I'm calling the DevOps gap. How do we go from a project to a product?
Oh yeah.
And that's really downstream from the Open Wallet Foundation, but the more we work on reducing how steep that gap is, when a new engineering manager at a big tech or a startup or a government organization or a university shows up on our doorstep, the effort of the mapping that's going on in the architecture SIG is specifically around how do I make it easier for an experienced developer to find the project that they can use, not contribute to.
Yeah.
Get them to use it, get them to rely on it, get them to, make it easy for them to want to contribute back because now they have a vested interest in it. And it's a bigger discussion that we're having internally. And how do we give better tools or at least work with the community to make those tools more effective so that we don't push people into the deep end of GitHub on every single project, which is, your head's down. You're building a great project. It's in use. And we want to identify what are the simpler, the low-hanging fruit to make that easier. Does anyone else have a question for Dmitri and Alex? I don't want to end this call, but I have to jump to others. And everybody, it's the top of the hour. And I want to make sure that, okay, where can folks in our community, do y'all have meetings? Do you have calls? I know you've got a Slack channel. Where are is there a mailing list that y'all have set up? Like, how can we connect folks to the Learner Credential Wallet Lab?
Thank you. I'll let Alex answer that. I do have to run, unfortunately. I have to jump to another call.
Thank you, Dmitri.
Looking forward to talking to you all.
Yeah, so we have different ways of getting involved. If, for example, you want to keep up to date on software updates, not just for the wallet, but for all of our open source projects, we do have a DCC support list mailing group that I can actually through our DCC consortium website. One second, I can grab that for you.
Alex, if you want, I will grab that email. I will grab that support list either from you or I'll go on the website and I'm going to put it into the wiki page for this meeting.
Oh,
This way-
perfect. Yeah, so I can
and-
provide all that information and you guys can access it later.
Brilliant. That would be awesome. And listen, I would love to thank Dmitri who's left and Alex. That was such a great presentation. And to everybody who showed up today, thank you for joining us and thank you for the questions. Next week, we're talking with the WeBuild team about EUDI wallets. And as Bo called out a little bit earlier, on Wednesday, there's going to be some news about business wallets from the EUDI program. So thank you all for joining us and have a great day. And again, thank you, Alex and Dmitri, for such a great presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take care,
all.
everyone.
Bye.